Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Keep Productive YouTube channel. It is Francesco here. As you can imagine, this is going to be a workshop all about Notion. So, we're going to cover a few things today. We're mainly going to be covering like how to create a workspace, how to begin sketching out your workspace, then the sort of knowledge part in building your apps. Throughout this whole thing, folks, you guys can post questions throughout it. So if you post them at the start or end, it doesn't matter. We will get to them all. The goal of this workshop obviously is naturally to solve your problems. So we've had, I think, only one email that sent through from Mirko, and he's sent over a few questions, but you can just pop them inside of YouTube chat if you like. And even if you have to dash off, leave them here. You can rewatch this video afterwards, which should give you all the information you need to know. So, as you can imagine, Notion is a little bit of a tricky thing. It's one of those things that takes a bit of time to set up. So, we're going to start by showcasing the workspace creation from a beginning standpoint. So before we go in, welcome to Tina, Fernando, and Robert, all from different places, Spain, Cleveland, and Backerweb. You are bang on time. So anyone, leave out questions as we move forward. So what I'm going to show you first is my Notion workspace. And the main reason behind that is because, as you can see here, this is what a knowledge base that you've built up and you've created will end up looking like. And of course, it takes time. This is much more, not an advanced setup, say medium, intermediate level setup compared to some others, of course. But as you can imagine, it can be an incredibly useful knowledge base. So up in the top left-hand corner, this is where you can actually go ahead and create a new workspace. And you may have already started one for yourself. So we're just going to explain a few things when it comes to the navigational side of stuff. And the main reason I want to do that is because we had a lot of questions inside of the course about why am I getting different navigation to everyone else? As you can see on this left-hand side, you can see that I've got workspace private. And if I were to go into this Keep Productive account, I've got workspace private and shared. And some people freak out and they're like, oh my goodness, I need all of these. Or why doesn't my setup look like this? And that's natural because you just think that's, the right questions. So let's go ahead and create a new workspace. Let's call it Test Inc. for demonstration purposes. And as you can see here, you can ask yourself how many people are inside of your team. So if you typically, they've changed their setup, but if you typically wrote more than 2, you'd probably get that workspace option on that left-hand side. But if you went for just me, chances are you're just going to get a personal area. So you can start with some templates. You can actually go ahead and choose which sort of sector you're in, support, sales, whatever. I'm going to move on and start without a template, just for the purposes of the navigation. So as you can see on this left-hand side, we actually don't have any navigation. And the main reason behind that is because there is obviously only just me in this account. If I go to the top right-hand corner, you can see it's just me, and the workspace is, of course, just solely myself, no other people added. So that navigation will change for each person that uses it. If I were to say, go up here and decided to enable this as a workspace and move it to a workspace, you can see that now in that left-hand side, you get the workspace option. But if I were to remove it, disable it, you can see that that no longer appears. So that's just important to note because we get that question quite a lot in the course. And naturally, it can be quite tricky. So that was the sort of first bit that I have there for you. Obviously, the navigation is quite an important part of this account. But one of the things that I think people struggle with, especially when starting up a Notion, is how to actually organize everything in a really succinct fashion without getting too complicated and too overwhelmed by it. So I'm going to move over to a piece of paper that we have here. Well, not a piece of paper, I'll explain in a second, so that I can demonstrate what that looks like. Now, it's the first time I'm using this option on Zoom, so hopefully it works out. Let me know in the chat whether you are able to see the this pen and paper or pen thing on paper below, just let me know. I'll welcome a few people while we wait for that. So Zoe, welcome from the UK, also UK here. Christopher, I've been waiting all night for this. Oh, that is dedication. Well, hopefully we can cover the points. Lindsay from Memphis, USA, awesome. Stephen, awesome to have you from Paul in Dorset. I'm in Devon, so it's not too far actually. Orit from Israel, and George and Rajat, I believe. Is that how you say it? So as you can see, hopefully this appeared. Rajat, thank you. Brilliant. Thanks for that confirmation. So the thing that I recommend typically is two things. Is first to create a visual demonstration of it, and then also to create a visual sitemap. So this is let's start with a visual demonstration. So what you may do, actually, let's start with the sitemap. That's probably better, actually. So you may be curious about, what do I actually want to add inside of my Notion account? So the best place to start is to start with personal. Now you can do this same model for the team, and you should be able to hopefully see everything on the screen. I'm just waiting to see whether it freaks out. So it's basically like a flow chart. So you would title, oh, this is when technology screws up on you. Hopefully it's fixed itself now. So you can start with personal, and then you can naturally move down into different segments. So what I typically go and build is things that are quite important pillars of my life. And I guess when I was a student, those pillars for me were personal, social, academic, and professional. So in today's lifestyle, you can see, obviously this would be sort of like personal development. Hopefully you can see. I'm just seeing that the thing sort of moved there. This could be sort of personal development. Social would be friends and family and events. Academic would be your learning and progression in terms of one, note-taking, and two, other aspects, and also professional, which could be you in your career or work. So you can start building the map off this, but in this case, I'm actually going to do this for my own life. So let's just shuffle all these away, get rid of them all. I need to upgrade the actual unit here, so I do apologize. So my one at the moment is finance, and then baby, because we're going to be having a baby soon, and then it's sort of daily. So I know that's going to be activated daily, and finally it is work. So the best thing to do here is to start listing some of the pages that you would like to have inside of here. Now, they don't actually have to be necessarily like pinpoint. I can almost guarantee you will change the way that your Notion looks over time. And this is really a skeleton. So here you may want to have all of your accounts inside of finance. You may want to have your pension. You may want to have your other funds, other savings pots, etc. Then also in baby, you may also want to have some information, which I have. So you can add that as a page, and also prenatal, before the birth. And in daily, you may want to have fitness, and you may want to have a journal if you're someone that wants to use Notion as a journal. You may also in work want to have some sort of career plan, and that's really understandable. And you may also want to have projects. So we will implement this later on, and I will just move it up to the camera slightly to hopefully get a closer view than what we're getting now. But the concept behind this is to create a sitemap, as you would see in some sort of flow chart, or even on a website. And the idea behind this is so that you can implement all of these pages later. Now, from here, you may actually find that you've duplicated a few things. Now, the thing that I think you should be trying your best to do inside of your Notion is to not overcomplicate it. Overcomplicating things can lead to more pages and more tables and more areas being created inside of your Notion. So the best way to do that is to thin it out a little. So inside of work here, let me hold this up to the camera because it looks like it actually seemed to have worked. So obviously, career plan could actually be involved in projects. So I might want to get rid of career plan because I could make projects long-term and short-term. Fitness and journal, maybe I don't want to change them. They seem fairly reasonable to have. I mean, for example, you could have just a area called daily where you could add your journal and what you did for the day. So there's potential to bring those together. Depends. Let's set them up today. And then, for example, information and prenatal, they could also be set up. So you have to ask yourself whether one page could, or two tables or 2 pages could become one page. And finally, you saw that funds is also one here, and pension. They could all become part of accounts if I wanted to. So thinning down each of your pages is also a very valuable way to improve your Notion setup. So let's move on to the visual demonstration of this. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new page here. And as I said, guys, if you have any questions throughout this, is the chance to pop them in the chat. So as you can see here, obviously you've got all your pages, you're pretty much ready to go, but sometimes people like to have some sort of layout. They want to be able to sort of plan what it looks like, because that's sort of the fun of Notion. So for example, what you may want to do is sketch out your home page. Now, there are many different ways to do this. You may want to have some widgets, or I call them widgets, like database views on your homepage, but you may just want your homepage to be really clear and really attractive. Now, for some people, let me just sketch out what the Notion homepage looks like. This is what a typical homepage looks like: profile photo, cover photo. Some people may just want to have, very simply, all the different aspects that we talked about: personal, finance, baby, and work. And they may just want to have them all with their pages below. And this is commonly associated and called a life wiki or a wiki. And it's something that I first saw when Ben, who's one of their community team, actually, I guess, formulated it on his initial sort of videos and his content. Or you may want to go ahead and create a different style, and that could be in the form of galleries. So gallery will, picture things like this, a bit like the workspace I created earlier, and I can talk through that later. So you may want to have a gallery view which shows a cover photo of each thing, of each area you've created, where you can click in to each thing. But the issue is, so if I go back to this one, so this one actually shows, and it makes it easier to access each page faster, whereas this one, you have to click into each panel to find it. So it does become a little bit harder than, say, traditional. So let's go ahead and show you the potential final setup that you may want. So obviously you may want a few of your pages on your home page. So you may want, for example, personal. You may want, say, baby there. But I've seen a lot of people actually want to embed some of their, say, for example, next actions or projects inside of their homepage. And this is typically because they actively use this. And that is something that you need to note down. If, for example, let's just move back to this page here. If, for example, you note that, for example, projects is going to be quite an actively used page, or say fitness or your journal because you use it every single day, or maybe even your finance accounts is going to be active, then you may want that on the home page. So there are 3 types of common pages that I see inside the Notion accounts. And that is, number 1 is this sort of life wiki. You can see it here. Number 2 is this sort of a gallery view or even a board view that many people use. And the third is a combination of a life wiki and some databases thrown in. Now for this demonstration, we'll show you this one here and how to get started, the life wiki, but we'll also show you some of the other demonstrations of how to get started. So as I said, if you've got any questions throughout this, we'll definitely answer them. I know that I have a few from the demonstration. So thank you all so far to putting some questions in there. I've seen Web, but Francesco, we can see an example of a can we see an example of a simple project manager looks like? Let's talk about the web page, for example. So you want to see how a project manager looks like? We can definitely cover that at the end. I'll make sure to add a note. And also Rajat says how to snap the page towards the right panel. I'm not sure what you mean, but I do mean how to, have 2 panels of your Notion at the same time. Let me know, Rajit. And Web and how to manage your finance and what process you suggest. Good questions here, guys. So let's jump into that Notion area that we created a moment ago. And we'll go and get started building what we've started with. So here we are. So there's obviously a get started area. Get started area is a good example of some of the features. Many of you may know the features already. We will be a little bit slower this session, so it's not too complicated for you. I'm just getting the the remarkable tablet thing, just ready over this left-hand side, so I know what areas to go and create. So as you can see here, you can delete this permanently and get rid of it, but they obviously refresh the page for you. So here, what typically do people start with? A lot of people call their new area home, and traditionally they add an emoji to it. So let's add the emoji for home. Now remember, you can search, you can filter down those wikis. So if you didn't want a home, you could have a tent. A lot of people like the tents, I don't know why. And you can also add a cover. You don't have to choose the cover from just the gallery they have here. But if you go to the Unsplash, you can be a little bit more creative. So if, for example, you want to go to your local area and pick one that you know represents your local area, trying to find a good one. I don't know, that could be quite nice. Then you can find one there, and you can even link it and upload it there. So you can make it feel, crikey, very homely if you want to. So one of the things that a lot of people don't know before they start is you can go to style in the top right-hand corner, and there's 2 things you can do. You can make the text smaller. Making the text smaller just squeezes and makes more and better room of the space. The second thing is making your home full width. Making your home full width is much more beneficial because, for example, if I created a page just for the sake of it, if I create a page, you can see that full width is turned off on this page. But if I go back to home, it's remembered that it's not full width. So that's a great demonstration of it because you can actually, have it per page. You can choose full width per page. So we went and created 4 key areas. So let's go ahead and start that. So let's title this one with subheading 3. I really like subheading 3. It's a great way to demonstrate stuff without it being too intense. So let's go ahead and type in finance. Now, what I normally do is start adding all of the titles first. So this will take a few seconds. And as you can see, you can naturally get things rolling. So work. So as you can see here, the best thing to do is add a divider just below them, make it look really neat. And what I always do is copy and paste these dividers. It just takes seconds instead of necessarily having to, recreate these and just pasting them below this. Now, with all new workspaces, it takes a few seconds to get started. So it's a little bit sort of squeamish and a little bit annoying when you have to move all the stuff over here, because as you can see, it naturally sort of moves around. It doesn't look as good, but you can use this divider to make each section a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger. So we're going to put all of these four next to each other so that you can sort of get an idea of how this will look. And we're going to copy the work one as a final. And as you can see, we've really got the ball rolling with this. So I may move this across. Daily looks like it's being taken up a little, and finance. So the one thing you can do is you can copy all of these. You can right click and you can obviously go to the color area and you can change either the color of them or the actual background. Now, some people like to change this to highlighted yellow background just for, I don't know, making a little bit clearer, a little bit sort of bolder. And just below all of these, you can start beginning to add all of the pages. Now, as I said earlier, if you were someone that wanted to have, for example, a database inside of here, say you wanted some of your daily projects to be front and center, you may want to move one of these down here and leave space on this right-hand side for that project. So as I believe it was Rajat said, let us go ahead and create the projects area. So we said we're going to bring together and bring not just our projects, but our long-term career planning in. So let's call this one projects. So as you can see, I'm going to give myself a nice checkbox as the projects area. Now, one of the best ways to create projects is by using the board view. The board view, I think, is a good representation. And what I tend to recommend more these days is to actually build pages as full database views, because if, for example, you don't create them, sometimes they can get a little bit messy. And it's always nice to jump into a certain project. So as you can see here, I've got a project going. This is some basic project management. So hopefully you can see here. Now you could, for example, use this as a form of sort of inbox. I normally just hide this straight away. So I get started. And as you can see, you can start with the basic action. So not started, in progress, and completed. You can obviously change all these titles if you want. But as you can imagine, let's start adding a card. So I need to edit the woven course that we have going. And if I enter, you can see that it sets you up with real basics. Assign a person to do it, me, and assign a status. But you can also add some details. Like, for example, you could have the percentage complete and have that one rolling here. So that's something that you can add there. You could also, for example, add a deadline date and naturally choose the deadline date. So Thursday could be that day, or Friday, I think I chose. You can move this one up to the top if you wanted to. Now, naturally, you can add a cover to all of these, and inside of here, can open this as a page and use it as if I was managing my project. So as you can see, one of the things you can do is properties, and you can set the deadline there. You can even add the status if you wanted to. And remember, you can group by different statuses as well. You can see who's it assigned to or status of the certain project. So if you wanted to, you could have it a multi-select. You could type your work. So for example, if I brought this up to the top, I could type this, I could call this one an active project. And what I might want to do is group that by type. So you can see that active project, and I can add maybe like, I could call this one career plans. Then, for example, if I went back to the other view, status, and went and added a new detail to it. For example, I could say end of 2020 goals and add an icon. So I could say direct target. I think I'm trying to find that emoji with the bullseye. No, maybe I'll just have to manually find it. So you can try and find it. I think it's somewhere around here. Let's just have this one. I'm too lazy to search for it. Select career plans, assign it to myself, and add the deadline as the end of the year. And this could be a good way to combine the both projects and work that you have. So this could be in progress. So it could land and look like this when you move there. So as you can imagine, you can move over to type and see all of your ones. You can add them per month if you wanted to, but it's a good way to break up, say, an active project and a career planning project. But that's really something you can play around with yourself. There are some great templates on this platform. But if I wanted to, for example, go out of here, and as I said, wanted to see active projects that I'm working on only, then what I could do is type in linked database. So I need to create a linked database, and I need to select projects. So as you can see, the full database appears. Now, naturally, I might want to add it in this left-hand side. I probably might even need to shuffle these along. So I might just have to move finance and maybe across and daily. And you can see there that everything starts springing out. So I can start seeing my projects. Now, there are different ways, and I'll explain how Mirko did it. But you could, for example, keep the name of the project. You may want to get rid of the certain properties appearing. You may want to get rid of completed, assignee, and also you may want to get rid of status, or actually maybe you want to keep status and get rid of type. Now, in the progress of things, you may want to keep your board a little bit slimmer, even more slimmer than this, folks. So you may want to go to the filters and add a filter and choose the type of the project as only active projects. So as you can see here, I can see at a glance the active projects that I've got going now, and I can go ahead and start rolling on it. So that's one of the ways many people are using it, but they're using it in a much more sort of succinct fashion. If you look at Marie Poulin, she does some great videos, for example, with the next actions and things like that, can really take your Notion a lot further. Now, I'm definitely going to be trying out some of these setups now with a bit of time off at least. So I'm just going to check the chat if we have any questions. So Farhan says, I've got to jump off for work, naturally. Hope this is being recorded. It certainly is. You can find it available thereafter. And Zoe put, I find the emojis in Notion aren't all there. And you can't change the colors. Yeah, I think it depends. I understand what you mean. So what I would, that sort of leads me on to the next thing. You can definitely go ahead and use, if you've got a Mac, go ahead, and I only learned this the other week, Control Command Space. And if you can do that, and it actually brings up your entire Mac database of ones. So it may actually bring up more suitable ones for you. So I might want to find money related to the finances. I could also find baby in the same way. So that's Command, Control, and Space. And I could put the baby there. And daily. So daily could be, I don't know, a clock. And finally, work could be a briefcase. So this is what this is a basic skeleton of what the projects and all of the sort of areas like this could look like. You can see here, I've also accidentally forgot to leave the divider behind. That just neatened things up a little. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create an accounts area. So I do this. This is a handy way to build up a nice sort of list of your accounts and what you've got inside of them. And I normally do this in a table. So the best way to do this is to start with the name of account, the bank name, and then you can also add another field, a multi-select field, move it across, and you could also put it in the type of account. And finally, you could also put the number, because you may want to know how much is actually in there. And if I go to format, I can choose pound so that any figures below come out with that. So we're actually going to be adding to the course, guys, a bit of a 13-part tutorial. I'm going to try and do it by tomorrow from Alex Sherwood, who is a fantastic, he runs Notioneer, which is amazing, useful guides on Instagram and Twitter. And he explains how you can set up a finance tracker from scratch, much better than mine. So this is how I personally use it. So the name of the account, you could, for example, have a personal account. And naturally, it's with NatWest. And you could also add in the type. So this is a personal one as well. So you may not even need the sort of title here. So you may want to say current account. That might be a better way to call it, current account. And you can also add how much is in it. So we could just add £1,000, for example. And then you can, for example, begin adding this for joint current account if you have one with your partner. And we have one that like with this. So if I were to choose green, and I could say this one is a joint one, and I can make this yellow. And then we could say that's got that in it. And then you can add to it, for example, if you had any other accounts like the pension savings. And then, I don't know, a pension saving company. There we go. And you could, for example, choose it as a personal account. You could say that, I don't know, that's how much is in it. So you can, the great thing about this is you can calculate your sum of all of them. So you have £3,200, and that's a nice way to be able to see all of your bits there, bits and bobs, all of your account information. So if I wanted to, I can add filters, and I could go, okay, how much, not how much, sorry, bank type, how much is in just my personals? So I can say 2,400, or how much is in just my joint accounts, etc. So the filters can be helpful for getting started. So there we go. We're getting things going. You can also add in, the baby pages. Sometimes what I do, folks, I won't add any information to this now, but the thing that the goal is to build a skeleton inside a Notion so that you can add body later. So I may want to just add prenatal and change the emoji because it's not going to be that. So I may want to just leave these ones empty. But one of the best ways to signify they're empty is by typing empty next to them, or maybe even adding an emoji so that you know to fill them later. And this can be useful for any sort of context, but also just to help you to clean them up later. There we go. So they're both empty. The other thing you can do is Control P. Control P helps you to find anything inside of your workspace. In this case, I might type in empty, and you can find all of the empty ones to start filling up. So that's just a helpful tip if you want looking to build that structure. Structure is more important. Getting this right before you necessarily add all of the gems to it can save you a lot of time. So you may want to add a journal. Journal is a good way in sort of building up a sort of tally of what you want to see. I find that the gallery view is the best. The main reason behind that is because it's very nice to look at. So you may want to add a book emoji to that. Now, the thing that you might want to do is go to properties and make the page cover the image, and also change the card size to small. So you may want to have the date it was, I've gone off it, damn it. You may want to have the date that is created on and some tags. And you may want to change the tags to something like, your moods for the day. I don't know. But it's just might be a better way in doing it. So you can see here that I've got pretty much a blank canvas. So the best way to start with this is actually to create a template. Templates are a better way to start journals because you may want to, for example, have lots of entries and you don't want to, put too much in there. So you may want to, actually, it's probably better to go ahead and create a new date property and call this one entry date and move this one up here. Create could be misinterpreted. So entry date is probably a better one to have up here. So you may want to create yourself different areas. So for example, you want to say focus today and have a section just below here of things to get started on. This could be something just to get the ball rolling. You may even want to start, adding an ideas section where you can start adding some ideas you've had during the day or tasks completed. And I can go and add a divider and bring that in. So that is could potentially be a better way in doing it. So as you can see here, maybe these are a few things you want to do. Some people like a journal to be more tailored towards the journal entry itself. So let's maybe write a prompt. What did I do today? And I could add emoji just before it with an upside down smiley face, just to be a bit stranger. I could also add a task or things I've done different, or also times I've enjoyed. So people like to add these sections because they can really customize it and make it more personal every day. These prompts could help them. So you may also want to have a few pre-created moods. So for example, sad. Actually, you could just add emojis for them if you wanted to. So you could just add sad and create that. You can make that one happy. Oh, I keep doing it happy with this smiley face. And I could also add, say, shocked. I don't know. But you can add these emojis for later. So let's go ahead and add a color to these guys. Brown. It's really ugly looking start here. So that could be a really, 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 really basic entry. You could spend much more time in it, but I'm trying to demonstrate how easy it is to sort of set this thing up. So here I may want to start saying, quarantine day 7, 17, I don't know. And you could add the date there and you could add your mood, maybe happy and sad, I don't know. And then you may want to start adding everything here. Now, if you've taken a photo during your day, you may want to go to change cover and upload that photo to make it a little bit more sort of enjoyable. I don't know. It's definitely not outside. It's definitely not that. And you may want to just go to properties and change the entry date there. So each day you've got a nice sort of entry into the file. And I really like the way the emojis are used there. So as you can imagine, you can do this exact same thing for fitness. So you may want to start listing some of the fitness out that you've got there. But in this case, we'll keep this one empty. So fit, health. I agree with Zoe. Some of the emojis aren't included. I always find it a bit struggling sometimes to find the right one. So I think there we've created a fairly good sort of, I guess, fixture for how we're going to build our Notion out. It's a really good sort of starting point. And as you can imagine, that can build on. Best thing to do is to view it on mobile as well, is to make sure that that looks suitable for mobile as well, easily accessible. Now, one of the pre-created questions that was sent in was by Mirko, who asked about how do I quite easily add in more details. So in this case, I'm just gonna, I hope you can see my phone. So inside of Notion, they've recently added, can you see this, guys? I'm just checking. If you're able to see it, just let me know in the chat, because it takes a little bit of delay on the time here. Hopefully you can. you can see down here, they've got 3 new navigation bars. So you've got a search bar where you can quickly go and search anything inside of your account. If I press it, I can quickly find stuff, cancel, it searches the entire workspace. Notifications, and they've also got this inbox feature as well now, which I really like. Helps you to see any sort of things that people are sent over. And now they've got this quick add feature. So if you, for example, take notes on a regular basis, so Mirko's question was about taking notes on, this sort of platform on the go, but you can choose an area where you quickly add notes to, and you can, for example, add it to your private pages, but I've got an area called notes and I've added to it in the past, and you could just quickly start taking some notes down. So I could say, maybe like, this is a smashing mug. And then I could go to files and I could add a file and I could choose a file and I could take a photo of something. So I could say, this is a cracking mug. Use this photo, and naturally it will take a little bit of time to load up. Once it's happy with that, I press done, and I can even add tag. So for example, inspiration. If I press done, then I go to notes. You can see that it's all been uploaded perfectly. So I can actually go and see that image and all is dandy. So that's how to take quick notes, and it can be easily accessible from the bottom right panel. So that is not a new feature. Well, it's been around for a little bit of time. I just realized my ears look well weird on this, this background. So folks, this comes to the period of time where it's all of your guys' questions. So I've got a few in the chat, and I will read them out. So Stephen put, my advice for setting up Notion is not to worry about getting it right or perfect from the start. It's so easy to rearrange things in Notion as you build and learn. 100% agree with you, Steve. That is absolutely fantastic advice. And that's the advice I echo. It is the thing that I'm promoting most at the moment, and that I will add to the course, is this concept of continually building every 3 months a version of your Notion account that looks better than the one before. And not necessarily, if it doesn't need changing, don't change it. But at the same time, I think it looks better if you keep progressively updating it. I always do it every 3 months, and it really does help to improve the layouts that I have. So Backer Web says pension is that like e-insurance, insurance. Pensions like something where you save for the future. It's like, no one's ever asked me to explain pension before, but it's just like where you so when you retire, that's the money that you live on. That was a good explanation. George, where are documents stored inside of Notion or inside the file folder, linked or embedded? So when you go ahead and upload a file inside of Notion, it gets uploaded to AWS, which is an Amazon Web Services, which stores it. So when you open it up at the moment, it opens it up as a web page, and that can be a little bit tricky because a lot of people like their storage to be locally stored. But the good thing is, if you're on a personal plan, which is the paid $5 a month plan, you get unlimited file sizes, which is helpful. So that's a real plus for many people. But if you're on the free plan, you get 5 megabyte limit per file. So you can have actually unlimited, you can have unlimited amount. Carol, thank you for popping along today. Rajat, how did you add the smiley faces in the page? So the smiley faces can be added. I use the Mac controls, so Command, Control, Space, and you'll get the options there. So that's how you do it. So as you can imagine, that's quite easy to get started. So I will be around for the next 5 minutes or so. If anybody would like to ask me any questions that are specific, of course. Notion, one of my biggest recommendations with Notion and setting it up is to consistently build it and consistently improve it. Learn small hacks. If you're not following the other Notion individuals on YouTube yet, please do check them out. There's for George, who's just said, Ali Abdal does a fantastic YouTube channel, but he talks about Notion all the time. Marie Poulin dives into much more advanced setups than I do. And there is a bunch of new Notion channels which can be activated. So it's well worth exploring them if you broaden your horizons with Notion. That's my biggest recommendation. And of course, with that will become better setups. I think I've covered everything today. As you can imagine, it will naturally take a bit of time for you to set up your Notion. I'm just looking at sort of my list of things that I should have covered, and I think I have covered it. That's the only time I ever use paper. If you have any questions, I'll be around for a few moments to answer them. But I really appreciate you all for tuning in today here to this live. So we've got a question. So Patrick Walker, any sense of when more robust offline capabilities will be available in Notion? So offline is still on the books, but it hasn't officially been confirmed. I probably think it will be here in 2020. With all the stuff that's happening now, I can imagine their development cycle has been slowed down a little bit. They've had to ship out a remote feature quite fast. So yeah, I'll try and get an update on that one, Patrick, but I can imagine it'll be this year. I know it's not very specific, it's very vague. Christopher, I fell so behind. You can watch this all back, guys, so don't worry. But folks, any more questions? I'll wait a few more seconds, but thank you all for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, you can watch this again anytime after if you want some re-explanations of how to set things up. But folks, thank you, and I hope you have a fantastic day and stay positive with everything that's happening, of course. Thank you, Patrick, and I hope to see you all very soon. Cheers, everyone. Thank you. Bye.